if the system closes down and fails, this always has a value. It may not necessarily be the value that you want, but it'll have a value. Someone will exchange it for something. Good day, my name is David Fusco, and in this show, I'm going to talk about business, finance, and how to survive and thrive in this crazy environment that we're living in today. Welcome to my show. Hello, my name is Dave Fusco, and welcome to my second episode of Business and Survival. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about finance and money, which is a big topic today. And this also brings me back to my first episode where I was talking about my journey, my personal journey from being just a regular Joe American to questioning things. And that's something that we should all do, is we should learn to question things that we see and hear and read. And whatever it is you hear or see or read, no matter where you've seen it or learned that information, you should always check it with other sources. There's plenty of resources out there. With the internet today, we can pretty much look all over the world. But if you haven't noticed already, in the internet world, things are being a little more controlled. So when you use Google search and things like that, you may or may not get all the information you need, or you'd have to probably scroll down like 10,000 pages. So when you're doing your research, you should look at all sources that's possible. One of the things that first led me into this crazy world of the Alice in Wonderland world and going down that rabbit hole was the money system. And this happened after my divorce in 2003. And I started learning about the Federal Reserve Bank. And it was at that time I realized and learned that the Federal Reserve Bank was actually a private corporation. And this private corporation is owned and controlled by individuals, the big name families. And what happened is, the little history of that was they got together on Jekyll Island in the early 1900s, and they were coming up with a new monetary system to follow because they were going to make things better and keep us from depressions and recessions and all that. And what happened was, at the end of it, our money system was changed from what the Constitution said it was supposed to be into a private banking system. And that was one of the things that the Founding Fathers wanted to avoid. And in actuality, the current Federal Reserve Bank is our third go-round at the Federal Reserve Bank. The first two only had short-term charters. This one's lasted now over 100 years. And just as a little side note, income taxation, other than a short blip during the Civil War, did not exist until after the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank. So we can thank our congressmen and senators of 100 plus years ago for putting us into the system we're in now that looks pretty dire. So we're all exposed to the world today on how our money system is changing. And you don't even have to be that old now and realize that, hey, this dollar bill that I went into the candy store last year and I got a Snickers bar or whatever it might be, now I need $1.25 or $1.50. Maybe you get a little lucky and you get a cheap price, but numbers have gone up quite significantly. So what is a dollar, or what is a dollar supposed to be? I mean, we all carry around these little pieces of paper. Of course, I don't have a dollar, right? Why should I? You guys got a dollar bill, anybody? I know I'm breaking my pad. Wait, maybe I do. Yeah, I do. Sorry. All right, so what is a dollar? So these are the things that we're carrying around in our pocket, and we call them dollars. And they are. It clearly says $1. This is $1. Now, if you look at the top of it, what does it say? It says Federal Reserve Note. A note is a debt instrument. So this is a debt instrument to the private bank called the Federal Reserve Bank. And it's owned by people like the Rothschilds, the Morgans, people like that. The regular Joes, so to speak. So that's a modern Federal Reserve note. This is not money, technically. This is actually called currency. What should our money be? Well, our money was originally based on the definitions of the Constitution. And actually, our money system was copied from the Spanish money system. So what I have here is some old Spanish money. And this actually is a Spanish coin from Central America. I forget what country it's from. And it's just a blob of silver. Well, back then, they really didn't care what it looked like. They just cared that it weighed a certain weight. And you'll notice all these irregular shapes and whatnot. So what they did was they would pound it flat, melt it, pour it, pound it flat, and they would, mark it once it was the proper weight. And until it was the proper weight, they kept cutting off pieces and dropping it on the scale and cutting off pieces until it weighed the weight that they wanted to, which is approximately 0.8 of an ounce. Then as the money press came along, the Spanish reals, as they called them, this is a Spanish real from, what year we got here? This is 1809, and this one's 1786. Now, what's interesting is if you had this Spanish real, which I do right now in my hand, it's worth at least whatever, and the weight of silver is in it. This is 0.8 of an ounce of silver. Right now, silver is $27 odd, spot price. So you're talking about whatever that is, $24 or something like that. Okay, so this has a value. Now, if you had paper money and it wasn't rotted away and disappeared from the Spanish currency back at that time, it wouldn't even exist. So this maintained a value. It always has a value. Little interesting tidbit. If you look at the back of the coin, I don't know if you guys can see it in the camera there. See these two pillars, the pillars of Hercules? That's where our dollar sign, or at least so the rumor says, came from. They brought the pillars together and made the S. So, This is also what they called pieces of eight. So if you watch all these pirate movies and whatnot, pieces of eighths. Why pieces of eight? Because back then, they didn't care what it looked like. They just cared that it was silver. And they would cut this into 8 pieces. So you would have 2 bits, which is a quarter. And if for the old timers like me, there used to be an expression, shaving a haircut, 2 bits, 25 cents. Actually, that's even before me, probably Depression level time, 1920s. We're almost there again. So that's a Spanish real. Then a Spanish doubloon. A Spanish doubloon is gold. And again, this is made out of gold, and it's about 0.8 of an ounce of gold. Right now, gold is around $1,900 an ounce. And so again, this has a value. We'll just call it $1,900. So think about that. This maintained its value. So originally in the United States, we created a money system, and they made a definition of what gold and silver was. They utilized the Spanish money system as a way to create that thought. So in the United States, a dollar was defined as just a little over 0.8 of an ounce of silver, or 24 grams. And what's interesting is any coins that are dimes, quarters, half dollars, or dollars made 1964 and earlier are made of 90% silver. And what's the interesting fact about that is that regardless of the combination of the coins that you use, if you use 4 quarters, 10 dimes, 5 dimes and 2 quarters, any combination thereof, a dollar is a dollar, and you'd have, we'll just call it, for simplicity purposes, 0.8 of an ounce. So now what's nice is 1964, this is a silver quarter. This one's from 1963. And this particular quarter, back in 1963, 1964, when it was issued, purchased 1 gallon of gasoline. Then in 1965, they came out with the modern quarters, which we got here, a modern quarter. And it's just made of base metals. There's no silver in it at all. And the value of this quarter is, 25 cents. So 1964, I have silver quarters. 1965, I have base metal quarters. Right now, the melt value of this silver quarter with a spot price of $27.34 is about $5. So with this quarter, I can buy 2 gallons of gas today. With this quarter, I get maybe 1 spin on the bubblegum machine at the A&P supermarket. Somebody told me they're 2 quarters now. So the money did not hold its value. the silver content of the money holds its value. So, but let's see here. We got some little more show and tell stuff. So, a $20 gold, what is a gold piece? In the United States, they came up with gold coins, too. And people used to walk around literally with gold and silver coins. This is a gold coin from, it's a $20 gold piece from, let me see, we can't even read the year. That's what happens when you get older. From the 1920s, 1933 and earlier. And so this is approximately 0.8 of an ounce also of gold. So we'll just call it an ounce for making my brain easy to multiply. And actually, they sell for what an ounce would be. And right now, this is around $1,900. Clearly, it says $20, but it has a melt value of $1,900. Now, a little show and tell here to continue. Again, we'll first talk about that note of today. It's a Federal Reserve note. This is a debt instrument. So up until 1933, the United States had paper money also, but it wasn't called notes. They were called certificates. This is a gold certificate, a $10 gold certificate. In 1933, had you turned this gold certificate in to a bank, they would hand you 1/2 of an ounce of gold. We'll call it an ounce of gold. I'm just using a full ounce. It's easier to say. And this is a 1/2 ounce of gold. So right now, had this man turn this into a $10 gold piece, I would have about just under $1,000 US today. I could actually spend this as $10. It's a big difference in the purchasing power. Up until 1968, they also had silver certificates. And again, this was effectively a warehouse receipt. This is a certificate of ownership. I would go to a Federal Reserve Bank, I could hand this in, and they would turn around and they would hand me back 5 silver coins or 5 silver dollars. The silver dollars from that time frame, they're under an ounce, but they're priced as an ounce. So right now, the melt value is around $27. To be exact, it's about $27. Now, this is a really freaky one that most people have never seen, and they only existed for a short time. And this is what's called a United States note. Now, the note, again, is a debt instrument. Federal Reserve note, a United States note. Federal Reserve note is payable with interest to a private corporation owned by a lot of foreigners to boot. A United States note is a direct debt of the United States government. So this has a lot more safety to it, so to speak. It's not controlled by foreign bankers. But the problem is these never really made it into the system all that well, because what happened was actually I think it was President Kennedy at the time was trying to remove the Federal Reserve notes, and he signed an executive order. I can't remember the number. And shortly after he signed that executive order, somehow or another he got assassinated. Who knows why? So that's our money system and how it's changed over the years. Now, what's a modern, actually, I have a modern, this one's a proof coin. So now you can actually buy proof coins. This is a proof United States Mint 1 ounce coin. Now it's a full ounce versus, 0.85 or 0.84 of an ounce for the older coins. They place a face value on it of $50. Obviously, the melt value is a lot more. The nice thing about physical metal is well, it's private. It's in your hands. Now, people say, well, what can you do with it? I don't know. What can you do with a Bitcoin? What can you do with a Ethereum? Or, whatever. There's thousands and thousands of names of coins out there that they come up. The problem with those coins, although I do have some and I think they're of interest, is that it relies on the system to have a value. And if the system closes down and fails, this always has a value. It may not necessarily be the value that you want, but it'll have a value. Someone will exchange it for something. And you could also buy from the United States Mint, and there are private mints too, and other governments. But this is a roll of 20, if I can get the darn thing open, silver dollars, and that's what they look like. Nice, shiny. This is money. This is constitutional money. Actually, this is more than constitutional money because it has more weight in it than the official dollar weight. Now, I also have, of interest, just loose change. This is about $33 of quarters. And it's very heavy. And actually, I don't know if you can hear it, but it has a different sound to it versus the modern money. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but this has a ring to it. This does not. As soon as you touch it, you can feel it. It's different. It has a different feel. It has a silky feel to it. You look at the rim, it's solid silver. If you look at the rim of the modern coins, it's got copper, a lot of copper in it. This has a value by itself, $5. Each one of these is $5. Each one of these is $5. But there's no inflation, so they tell us. Inflation is only 2%. What would you rather be holding? These copper coins or partial copper coins or the silver coins? These are also easily recognizable and they're easy to obtain. So, is the United States going to lose its currency? I don't know. But every currency that's been created that's backed by nothing eventually goes to its true value, zero. They don't even need to, and soon they're not going to even bother printing it on paper. It's all going to be digital. And that's the path that this country is on, is going into a digital dollar. Well, what's the value of a digital dollar? Well, they can tax, trace, and figure out every single thing you're doing. Silver and gold, private money. Even the paper notes is private money. And not that you're doing anything wrong, but maybe you're doing something that you'd rather not have taxed and traced. Or maybe what you're doing today is perfectly okay, but 2, 3, 4 years from now, it's not. We've all watched the news media where they're bringing up stuff that politicians did 20, 30, 40 years ago. I don't even know what the hell I had for breakfast yesterday. Never mind 40 years ago what I did. So when you can't, or when you are losing trust in the system, you need to keep pulling yourself back closer to the people around you. You need to go into and hold things that have a value, that have nothing to do with the country you're in. I could take these coins, if I could send myself back in time to ancient Rome, 2,000 years, they wouldn't recognize the writing, they wouldn't recognize the images, but they would know it was silver, and I'd get a cheese sandwich or whatever the heck I could get for that much silver back in those days. If I went back with this coin, they'd probably throw me out, if not beat the crap out of me. So, what other histories have we seen? What other place have we seen crazy things happen? Well, I like this one in particular because it's like one of the most obscene. And this is the Zimbabwe money. In the late 70s, there was a country called Rhodesia in Africa. And they threw off the yoke of the colonial oppressors, and they became Zimbabwe. And in 1980, they issued their Zim notes, or Zim dollars. And the Zim dollars had an approximate trading value against the U.S. dollar of $1.47. So $1.47 U.S. in 1980 equaled $1 U.S. Go forward to 2008, and they're issuing the last paper note that they had. This is $100 trillion. 1980, $1 equaled $1.47 U.S. And in 1980, brain fart there. In 2008, when this was issued, it purchased 3 eggs. That's it. And then it was worthless. It was only valuable for a few days. what ended up happening is the people there, in order to survive, they would mine gold. Gold is everywhere, but it's not that easy to find. Why is gold and silver money? Because people accept it as a trade for value. They've done it for 2, 3, 4,000 years, however long human history is. It's in the Bible. Gold and silver is money. So you don't hear about Federal Reserve notes being money. You hear about gold and silver. So gold and silver is God's money. If I'm not wrong, the only way to create gold is from a supernova. So if you can get a supernova to happen in your backyard, you can create more gold. So it's not like it comes, well, it does come out of thin air, I guess, however the molecules get together with that supernova. Obviously, that's not going to happen that easy. But you don't even have to print these anymore. With the touch of a button, with this one finger, I can create anywhere from $1 US to, well, I think they just did $1.9 trillion or something like that. And I think a few months ago they did another 1 point whatever trillion dollars. And before that, I think the official debt is over $27 trillion. And if my memory serves me correctly, what's $1 trillion? I guess the way to look at it is let's say you had a $100 bill and you laid it flat on the table. Now, I may be wrong with these measurements, but if you stack them up high, I think it's 4 inches high of stacked up $100 bills is $1 million. 4 inches, that's it, 4 inches. I forget the height of $1 billion, but it's less than a skyscraper. $1 trillion stacked flat like that is over 60 miles in height. So that gives you an idea of the difference. And what's it going to buy you in a week from now, a month from now, a year from now? We're hitting a hype. I'm not going to use the word hyperinflation with to overstate it, but ultimately that has to happen like that because that's when I was a kid growing up 10,000 years ago, in the 1970s, I would buy 2 slices and a Coke for $1. I don't know what you need now, but probably at least $5, $6. And it's probably just going to keep going up. So we're in a different world today. Now, how does that tie into survival? Well, if you saved up money in a mattress, or if you have it in a bank and it's all in electronic form, well, first off, the banks can stop giving you your money. They could say, sorry, we don't have it right now. And the bank can fail. Well, that's okay, you say, I have the FDIC insurance. Well, the FDIC has up to 5 years to give you your money back. And if we're going through an inflation, especially a hyperinflation, how valuable is that money going to be when you finally do get it? Maybe you'll get a can of peas for $100. Who knows? If you have it in your hands physically, paper, again, they just keep creating more, it loses value. Physical metal, silver, gold, platinum, palladium, all of those have a value, even copper. The pennies that were made 1982 and earlier, if I'm correct, have a melt value of almost 2 cents in copper. So when they create the pennies now, they're made out of zinc and they're coated with copper. And they're just going to get cheaper and cheaper, and that's why they don't even want to create and print it anymore. It's because it actually costs them more money than the purchasing power of much of the coinage and or the paper dollars. So in addition to having some kind of asset that you have that's outside the system, that has its own value, regardless of where you're located in the world, what else do you need? Well, you need to have, beyond that, besides money to acquire assets and things to utilize, you need to create your own community of people. So in my next episode, what I'm going to be talking about is how I've decided to vote with my feet and to move my business and create other avenues for myself to have continue in my business where I can still survive and thrive, but in a different location where the people are more like-minded to me. In a place where you don't have a mayor that says, we are going to redistribute the wealth. I grew up predominantly in the 70s and 80s. That's when I was in the military. all the propaganda that was put into our heads back then, the old better dead than red. And that's in my head. I don't want to be a communist. I refuse. We're Americans. We have to take control of ourselves, which is the only thing that we can take control of. We have to be responsible for ourselves. We have to be responsible for our families. Don't look to the government to save you. They're not here to save you. They're there to save themselves. It's funny, what comes into my head is when I was a young guy, maybe late teens, my father said to me, what's the purpose of government? I go, well, I guess to, build roads and bridges, to provide protection for the people, things like that. He goes, nope. Their purpose is to keep their job. That's all they care about. They don't care about you. They'll watch any politician. I don't care who it is. Hear the words coming out of their mouth, and as soon as they're coming out, they fall to the ground like dead weights. Rely on yourself. Rely on your family. Get together with like-minded people. Find places that the people are much more like-minded to you and that are going to resonate with you and your purpose. So that's pretty much all we have for today's little episode. So as a little recap, what is money? Money is any exchange. Actually, technically, money is gold and silver. These papers are currency. These papers, which are convertible into, which used to be convertible into gold and silver, are warehouse receipts. But again, let's say I could get defaulted on, because think about it. The guy who held this $10 bill was defaulted on. He should have got a half an ounce of silver almost. What did he get? A piece of paper that says $10. If you have these things, the gold and the silver, well, that's real. This you could still get stuff with. This has this quarter from 1964 and earlier buys you twice what it bought you back in 1964. This $20 gold piece, we'll call it $2,000 almost in value right now. Clearly says $20, but now I can buy $2,000 worth of goods. If I had a $20 paper bill from 1934, let's see, what can you get for $20? I guess you go to McDonald's and you could take care of yourself and maybe your friend visiting there, get a Big Mac. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Get a meal for you and your buddy at McDonald's. That $2,000, you could actually buy not a great one, but you could buy a used car for $2,000. You could transport yourself. You could buy tools, hammer, skill saw, things like that, where you can actually make a living. $20, you can't. So if you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment in the video. And if you can, please share it with your friends and families and the people that resonate with you. We've got this together.